I have a question for you. How do you feel about assessments being used in the hiring process? Well, I've been in recruitment for almost 15 years, and I've talked to tons of people about this, and I've heard different things. I've heard people say, Ben, I don't mind them. Ben, I like them. I find them kind of interesting. And then there's a group of people who go, Ben, I've been doing my job for however many years. Why do I need an assessment to tell me if I can do my job or not? Well, if that's how you feel, I have devastating news for you. 77% of companies over 100 people use some sort of assessment in their hiring process according to the Harvard Business Review. And guess what? That number is not going down, it's going up. They're anticipating that 88% of companies over 100 people will be using some sort of assessment in their hiring practice soon. In today's video, we're going to talk all about hiring practices that include assessments. What are the most common assessments? What do they measure? What do they mean? And how are they used in hiring? Let's go. So first things first, how are they used? Well, most of the time, companies are using them in addition to their interviewing as a way to get more data about whether or not a person is going to be successful in a role. So when you interview someone, you can look at their resume, you can ask them questions, but there's very little you can actually glean from that conversation in terms of their personality, in terms of their behaviors, in terms of the way they will collaborate with others, in terms of cognitive ability. All these things remain a mystery unless you have some sort of assessment to use. And that's the appeal of companies who want to add in assessments into their hiring practices. Now, what do they measure? These measure a few things. Most commonly, they measure cognitive ability. So basically like intelligence tests. But most of them are not an IQ test. They're more so of your ability to ramp up, your ability to learn, pattern recognition, etc. They measure emotional intelligence. They measure behavioral traits. They measure a variety of different things that do factor into how someone is going to collaborate and how they're going to work as part of a team and in a given role. There are also skill assessments, like if you're in software, there are coding assessments that are going to assess your ability to use certain languages and solve certain problems via your coding ability. So those are very much so hands-on tests that employers use to see, okay, you've said all these things in your resume, are they accurate? Now, what are some of the assessments you might run into? Now, there's a ton of assessments. There's tons of them. But some of the most popular ones, and if you're interviewing with a company, you're most likely to get are Predictive Index, Culture Index, Wonderlic, the DISC, the Myers-Briggs. These are all assessments that you might get, that you might encounter, and they all measure different things. But I'd like to focus in on Predictive Index because I actually have experienced Predictive Index. In fact, my company uses Predictive Index in hiring. And I work for a recruitment firm, so we help a whole bunch of companies hire people, and we will actually use Predictive Index on their behalf. And what Predictive Index basically does is it measures different behaviors. So it's going to measure 4 different behaviors primarily. I'll pop something on the screen here, but first they're going to measure dominance, right? Are you someone who's highly dominant or highly collaborative? Second, it's going to measure how outgoing you are. Are you extroverted? Are you introverted? Next, it's going to measure your patience. Are you incredibly patient? Are you impatient? And lastly, attention to detail. Are you someone who is highly detailed or someone who is not detailed at all? This is my pattern. I'll put it right up here. So my pattern is Maverick. What that means is I'm incredibly dominant and outgoing, but I have very little patience and less attention to detail. So if you're ever wondering, if you're watching one of my videos and I mess up an edit, it's probably because of my low attention to detail. Now, the way companies use these assessments is they actually can look and figure out what traits make someone effective for a role. Now, this can happen a few ways. If you're a licensed Predictive Index person, what you can do is you can actually send what they call job assessments. And job assessments are basically, you send them to a company and the company answers 10 minutes of questions. And it'll actually spit out behavioral ranges for each one of the behaviors that they measure. And then as you have applicants come in, you have them take the Predictive Index. And it actually shows you, are they a good fit? Do they have the appropriate amount of dominance for the role? Do they have appropriate amount of attention to detail? What about the appropriate amount of patience? And with every single candidate, you're going to see behaviorally, are they a match for the role? How good of a match are they? Are there misalignments? And when there are misalignments, they will actually give you questions to ask around these misalignments. Basically, what you're doing when you take one of these assessments is the companies are looking at your behaviors, look at the ideal behaviors for a role, and finding out, are they aligned? Or is there misalignment? So the next thing you need to consider is you as a candidate. You get one of these assessments, what do you do? Do you answer them? Do you try to manipulate it? Do you drop out of the process and not take the assessment? Here's my advice. If you get to the point where you are asked to do one of these for the company and you are interested in the role, you should absolutely take it. There's no harm at that point. I've had people literally drop out, say, you know what, Ben, I'm not taking this assessment. And I always think about that and I go, well, why? If you wanted to move forward in the process, why not just take the assessment? Right now you're opting out of it, but if you took the assessment and you passed, you'd move forward. And if you took it and it takes 7 minutes and it didn't pass, well, then you're getting the same outcome. You're not moving forward. So my advice to you as a candidate is always take it. The worst thing that can happen is the same thing that will happen if you don't take it. You won't move forward in the process. And if you're hoping to avoid that because you're saying, you know what, I don't want to work with a company that's going to take an assessment, or they're going to make this assessment as the judgment call on whether or not I'm a good fit for the role, you're just going to have less options. Because again, 77% of companies with over 100 people use some sort of assessment, and it's only going to become more and more and more. And my only other thing I would add to that is that companies aren't making decisions based solely on this information. It's part of the calculus. It's part of the decision-making process. It's not 100% whether or not they should move forward. It's a portion. For my company, when we use it, it's a third of the evaluation. A third is head. It's behaviors, it's cognitive ramp up. Is this person aligned behaviorally for this role? The second third is heart. Are you in value alignment? Are you a good fit for the team and for the company? And the last third is briefcase, skills, career choices, etc. And that's what a healthy balance looks like when you're using some sort of assessment, albeit predictive index or DISC, in an assessment of a candidate and determining, are they going to be a good fit? Now, let's just say you've done that, you've taken an assessment, you've interviewed, and you feel like you've had a really good interview, but you don't know if you're going to get a job offer or not. Do you know there's actually signs you can look for? There are things you should be looking for that will help you understand before you get a job offer. Is it likely you will get one, or is it unlikely? It's why I made this video here. This video here, well, it's signs that a job offer is coming. And if you watch this video and you notice that you get like 5, 6 of these signs, well, guess what? A job offer is probably coming. So I'm done here, but I'll see you over there.